South African Policing Union spokesperson Lesiba Thobakgale joins us now to chat more on the issues in the South African Police Service. Lesiba, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us and greetings to your viewers.
Let's first and foremost talk about the video that you have seen. What are your reactions?
From our side, we are indeed not surprised, and maybe we are hopeful now that the portfolio committee members have seen the realities that our members are faced with. And if one could remember, previously we had an issue where we were talking about the buildings of the South African Police Services, which were not in order, where our members were housed. We had to write to the Department of Labor for Wagdays to be closed, which is one of the head offices in Pretoria. We know Telkom Towers, even now through our intervention, is closed. And even across the provinces, there is quite a lot of challenges when it comes to dilapidated buildings, and also the lack of resources where members are housed in places or accommodation that is not indeed in terms of the safety and health environment standards. So those issues and those challenges, even where resources are not available for our members to be able to do their job, have been issues that we have been raising, and we continue to raise them because we know that if members are housed in places or in accommodation that is not indeed up to standard, what will happen to their morale? What happens to their dignity that they have as workers? Because it is not them who chose to work under such conditions, but it is the employer who has assigned them to work in those places. The least that the employer can do is to make sure that they have got the necessary resources. They are housed in a decent accommodation where they will be able to render services to our communities, so that even they themselves, their morale can quite be high. So this is quite an issue that has been going on for some time, and we have been raising issues around it.
And since you have been raising issues around it, what is your perspective around why you think nothing has been done thus far?
What we have came across, it is shifting of responsibility, where in most cases when it comes to accommodation that is not conducive, when we intervene, we will be told that it is the Department of Public Works that is responsible thereof, but it is the responsibility of SAPS, who is housing the workers there. So one cannot shift the responsibility to someone else, because ultimately it is them who have the responsibility to put or to place workers in a very decent accommodation. And when it comes to the issues of lack of resources, you know, there would be challenges that we would be told about, the issues of budgets, about the issues of vehicles taking a long time at the garages, whereas those are just administrative and supply chain management type of issues, which can just be resolved within a very short period for them to be sorted out. So those were some of the responses. But as an organization, knowing that we have members in those police stations or in those buildings, we have indeed taken a stance to say, where we come across a police station that is not up to standard, more especially when it comes to the issue of accommodation, we would inform the Department of Labor. They will come and do inspections, and then we have seen them taking actions. Telkom Towers, which is one of the biggest buildings here, which is considered to be head office, it had to be closed down, and even now those issues around it are not resolved, and the workers, they had to go and be housed somewhere else where it is quite better in terms of their dignity being restored.
If SAPS is indeed also partly to be blamed, and they should take some responsibility for not maintaining the dignity of the space that their workers operate in, then who at KwaThema Police Station in particular should take that responsibility? And why are we not naming and shaming?
Now, when we are looking at the issues of the buildings, remember those that are in the provinces, the provincial commissioner, as he is the number one within the province, is the one who takes responsibility for all the police stations that are there, for them to make sure that everyone who is housed, they are housed in a decent accommodation thereof. And then there are others which you find that they are national components or divisions which are there within the provinces as well, not falling directly under the provincial commissioner. They're the divisional commissioners or the component heads, then they are to be held responsible to say what is it that they have done if they have allowed a situation to be in this regard, where members' dignity continues not to be respected or not to be restored or to be maintained even at all. So that is the challenges that we are having. But the responsibility, ultimately, it is the management of SAPS, those who are responsible, starting from the provinces, going to the divisions, and even going to the national, because they are the ones who has to take responsibility on everything. This issue of where you will find that the DPW, they will be blamed on this and that. Yes, we know DPW is responsible to a certain extent, but we have seen at some stage where SAPS, they've taken, the management of SAPS have taken responsibility to make sure that they fixed some of the issues that they had in order for the situation to be restored, coming out of their own budget without waiting for DPW. So we are saying that all initiatives that has to be done with the buildings, the issues of resources, that members don't have resources. Imagine you come to a police station, you find that a member is waiting outside to assist you, whether to open a criminal case or to go and even give services to the members of society. What happens to that privacy that a member needs? Because that the members themselves, in rendering the service, the community members, in them being listened to, being given their own stories with dignity, for them having their own privacy, because all police stations are supposed to have those cubicles in order for them, whether when they are being attended to, one can be listened to, and then a statement taking can take place accordingly. So if those type of situations are not fixed accordingly, then it continues to be a crisis. So we are making this call to the management of SAPS, starting from the provincial to the division, and then also to the national management, to say they need to indeed intervene and make sure that this situation is resolved. We are getting into the festive season, and we know during festive season the caseload happens to grow from time to time, and this also poses a risk to our members, because if there is a police station attack that will happen like that, where members are just outside or they don't have anywhere decent to service the communities, then it makes them to be prone to criminals as well when they come to attack police stations, as we have seen some incidents that relates to police station attacks in this regard within our country.
All right. And following the legacy report that was submitted to Parliament earlier in the year, there have been tons of inputs and conversations around how the state of police stations in South Africa have an adverse effect on the ability of the police to do their job. How do you respond to this, and what is your position when it comes to what the impact is on the morale of the police and their effectiveness, essentially?
Maschaba, it is indeed true that if one is a police officer, when they tie their boots in the morning, they are not sure whether they will come back to their families at a later stage after their shift. So imagine the worst part when they go to a place that they know that, you know what, I'm not going to be housed better. Even their own place of residence happens to be even better. So that on its own, definitely it will affect the morale. Our position in that is that the morale of the police has been indeed, compromised for the longest time, and something needs to be done, more especially even without touching the conditions of service, where issues has to deal with dignity, where it comes to where they are being housed, then having the necessary resources, because one cannot go to work and go and beg for a vehicle to go and patrol, or beg for a vehicle for them to go and attend to complaints, beg for a vehicle for a detective to go and do an investigation, to go and obtain a witness statement, to go and sign a witness statement, to go and look for a witness and do this and that. All of those issues, indeed, largely they affect the morale of the police. So something needs to be done in order to correct the situation, so that we can boost indeed the morale of the police, who are doing their level best under difficult situations or difficult circumstances that they find themselves under, not them having placed themselves under those circumstances, but the management of SAPS, which is not taking responsibility on those circumstances. So we are saying that we need to work, we need to collaborate with the management of SAPS to say, let us hold hands together as a union, so that we can deal with all challenges that relates to the issues of the morale, that relates to the issues that has to do with where members are housed accordingly, because they are our members, and to the management of SAPS, they are their employees. So So we are saying that let us collaborate and really deal with those challenges, but without having clear commitment from management in resolving them, unfortunately, we will not be able to have this collaboration. But our hands have been offered largely for the longest time. That's why even when we go to buildings, if we really feel that these buildings are not up to standards, we try to intervene with them first. We don't only go to the Department of Labor to report. We start with them to say, let us collaborate. Let's see on how can we resolve these issues. If indeed we don't see anything coming by, that's when we would go to the Department of Labor, whom in terms of the safety and health environment prescribes, they will do what needs to be done. And where they find proper for the closure of the building to be done, they were doing that. And we have seen them doing it accordingly.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. That was spokesperson of the South African Policing Union, Lesiba Thobakgale.